In the vast countryside of America, where endless grasslands stretch under a boundless blue sky, John Miller, a 40-year-old man, lived with a passion for farming. He owned a sheep farm with hundreds of sheep. For John, the farm was not just his lifelong endeavor, but also a family legacy, passed down from his father. With diligence and dedication, John poured his heart into caring for his flock and managing every aspect of the farm. To protect his sheep from the lurking dangers of the wild, particularly the wolves that frequently roamed the area, John kept 5 sheepdogs. Each dog was an irreplaceable part of his life, each with a distinct personality and unique traits. A clever and agile border collie was the leader in herding the sheep. His sharp eyes constantly monitored every movement of the flock, missing no detail. A German shepherd with a muscular build and a commanding presence was the loyal guardian. Luna always led the charge in protecting the sheep from danger. Bella, a tenacious and fearless Rottweiler, was the group's warrior, never shying away from any threat. A nimble Belgian Malinois excelled at maneuvering swiftly across the vast pastures to keep the flock in check. Rocky, a Maremma sheepdog, was the silent protector. With his snowy white coat, Rocky blended effortlessly into the wintry landscape, guarding the flock from afar. Every day, John and his 5 dogs worked tirelessly to care for the sheep. These dogs were not just companions, but also steadfast partners who helped John overcome the challenges of life. However, the greatest challenge he faced came from the ferocious wolves. Winters in John's region were always harsh, with snow blanketing the entire area. When night fell, wolves often crept into the farm to hunt the sheep. Each time, John would discover several of his sheep had been lost. These wild wolves didn't just attack but left destruction in their wake, plunging the flock into panic. John often stayed up through the night, armed with his hunting rifle, trying to fend off the wolves. He built higher fences, set traps around the farm, and trained his dogs to be more vigilant. But the wolves were not easily deterred. They appeared unexpectedly, acted swiftly, and vanished into the darkness. The repeated failures left John feeling helpless. He hated the wolves, not only for the losses they caused, but also for their intelligence and cunning. To John, the wolves were not just an enemy, but a symbol of an uncontrollable threat. One night, after losing 4 more sheep, John decided to take more decisive action. He began researching wolves, learning about their habits and hunting techniques. He crafted a plan to capture them once and for all. John spent sleepless nights standing guard outside the farm with his rifle. His dogs took shift patrolling alongside him through the dark. Max and Luna often led the formation, while Bella stayed ready to charge at any danger. Rex and Rocky maintained a watchful lookout, using their keen senses to detect any unusual sounds. Yet all his efforts yielded no success. The wolves seemed to anticipate John's moves, moving swiftly and disappearing into the shadows before he could act. Each failure added to his mounting frustration. Despite these difficulties, John always felt the unwavering support of his dogs. They never shirked their responsibilities and were always ready to face any danger to protect the sheep and their owner. The bond between John and his dogs grew stronger than ever. To him, they were not just animals but family. That year, winter was harsher than ever before. Heavy snowfalls froze everything in sight, and temperatures dropped so low that even the breath of humans and animals turned to frost in the air. Under such circumstance, John knew the wolves wouldn't miss the opportunity to hunt, especially with his flock still being an easy target. John prepared more meticulously than ever, hoping this time he could end the threat posed by the wolves. But deep down, he had a vague feeling that this was more than just a battle between man and wolves. It felt like a test he needed to overcome to prove himself and protect what he held dear. John's entire farm was engulfed in an eerie silence. He sat in his small wooden house, the light from the fireplace flickering across his contemplative face. Cold wind seeped through the cracks of the window, carrying with them a sense of unease. He knew that in such harsh weather, the wolves would appear, as food in the forest had become extremely scarce. At midnight, just as John had dozed off after a long and tiring day, a series of noises erupted from the sheep pen. It was the fierce barking of Luna and Bella, interspersed with the panicked cries of the terrified sheep. John sprang up immediately. He grabbed the hunting rifle by the door, threw on a thick coat, and rushed outside. Snow fell heavily, and the biting wind made every step feel laborious. But John didn't care. His eyes were fixed on the sheep pen, where the faint light barely illuminated the scene. Max and Rex had already dashed toward the sheep, while Rocky stood guard, barking loudly to signal danger. As John approached, he immediately realized his worst fear. The wolves had attacked. About 10 wolves, their eyes glowing brightly in the dark, surrounded the sheep. A few had already pounced and were tearing into the helpless animals, sending the rest of the flock scattering in chaos within the pen. Without hesitation, John raised his rifle and aimed at a wolf biting into the leg of a lamb. The gunshot shattered the quiet of the night. The hit wolf whimpered and retreated. However, instead of scaring the pack away, the gunshot only seemed to provoke their ferocity further. Max and Luna lunged into the pack, trying valiantly to fend them off. Bella, with her strength and exceptional combat instincts, pounced on a large wolf, biting into its neck and forcing it to retreat. Rex moved swiftly, coordinating with Max to protect the remaining sheep. Rocky stationed himself at the pen's entrance, ready to block any wolf attempting to enter. John fired another shot, this time hitting the alpha wolf in the leg. It was a massive male with a silver-gray coat and cold, commanding, letting out a low growl of pain. Realizing their leader was injured, the wolves gradually retreated. They quickly disappeared into the darkness, leaving behind a scene of chaos and sorrow. When everything had quieted down, John began assessing the damage. 3 of his sheep lay dead on the spot, blood staining the white snow. Many others were so terrified that they refused to leave the corner of the pen. Worse still, Luna and Rex, 2 of his bravest dogs, were seriously injured. Luna had a deep bite wound on her shoulder, and Rex had a large gash on his hind leg, blood soaking into his golden fur. John felt his heart tighten as if it were being crushed. He temporarily dressed Luna and Rex's wounds, trying to keep them calm. The other dogs, though uninjured, were exhausted and drained. Max lay panting heavily beside the bloody snow, his eyes still glinting with vigilance. Bella, with her sleek black Rottweiler coat, sat next to John, ready to defend him should the wolves return. Furious and heartbroken, John resolved not to let the wolves go unpunished. He knew that if he didn't act immediately, they would return sooner than he expected. John called Mala and Rocky to join him, leaving Luna and Rex in the warm house to recover. He prepared a flashlight, his hunting rifle, and a sharp knife before setting out to track the blood trail of the injured alpha wolf. The trail of blood led him through snow-covered paths and into the dense forest. Each step was arduous, but his anger and determination fueled him. Bella walked beside him, simultaneously guarding and sniffing for scents, while Max led the way with the sharp instincts of a border collie. Rocky trailed behind, his pale coat blending into the snow, his glowing eyes resembling a silent specter. After over an hour of following the trail, John stopped before a large cave. The bloodstains extended into the entrance, making it clear the injured wolf had retreated here. Raising his rifle, John's eyes burned with anger. In his mind, he was ready to end this threat once and for all. John stepped into the cave, the beam of his flashlight scanning the cold, barren wall. As the light reached the deepest corner of the cave, what lay before him was a sight he could never have expected. The alpha wolf lay motionless on the icy ground, blood soaking the fur on its thigh. Beside it stood a frail mother wolf, brimming with protective instinct, shielding her newborn pups. John instinctively lowered his rifle. His eyes met the mother wolf's gaze, not the gaze of a ferocious predator, but the gaze of a mother protecting her young. The alpha wolf, though weak and helpless, let out a guttural growl, as if to say it would fight to the last breath to protect its family. John's rage dissolved, replaced by a strange sense of compassion. He looked at the tiny wolf pups, trembling in the cold. They were weak, their eyes not yet fully opened, huddling together for warmth. Without a word, John turned and left the cave. A short while later, he returned with bandages and medicine. He sat down and carefully removed the bullet from the alpha wolf's leg, then dressed its wound. Finally, he left behind one of the sheep killed earlier as food for the wolves and silently departed into the snowy night. After the snowstorm and the strange encounter in the wolves' den, John Miller's farm returned to a rare tranquility. The wolves no longer appeared, and his flock remained safe throughout the rest of the winter. However, the incident left a profound mark on John. Each time he recalled the gaze of the mother wolf, so frail yet resolute, he couldn't help but feel that something within him had shifted. His perspective on the wolves had changed from enemies to an indispensable part of the wilderness. John spent the following days tending to his flock and caring for his injured dogs. Luna and Rex, the two dogs severely wounded during the attack, received special care from John. He spared no time or effort in changing their bandages, disinfecting their wounds, and preparing nutritious meals to aid their recovery. Meanwhile, Max, Bella, and Rocky continued their duties of guarding the farm, but even they seemed to sense the change. The three no longer growled or barked when they heard the distant howls of wolves at night. John also took the opportunity to repair the sheep pen and reinforce the farm's defenses. However, instead of setting dangerous traps, he chose to strengthen the fences and install bright lights around the farm. Part of him wanted to avoid causing unnecessary harm to other creatures, even the wolves. As time passed, the harsh winter gradually gave way to the warmth of spring. The snow melted and the greenery began to return. Life on John's farm slowly resumed its normal rhythm. Though he never spoke about the decision to save the wolves, deep down he knew he had done the right thing. Many months had passed since the fateful night of the snowstorm. John Miller continued his daily life at the farm. The harsh winter gave way to the warmth of spring, then to the radiant days of summer. His flock had stabilized, and his loyal dogs, including Luna and Rex, were now fully recovered and healthy, as if their injuries had never happened. However, the memory of the night he encountered the wolves in the den never faded from John's mind. Another cold winter arrived, but the weather this year was not as severe as the last. John decided to spend a day sledding with Max, Bella, and Rocky, the three strongest dogs in his pack. This was not only a chance to relax but also an opportunity to train himself and the sled dogs. John prepared everything meticulously: the sled harnesses, provisions, and a handgun for safety. Though wolves were no longer as prevalent in the area, the wild nature of the region always posed unpredictable risks. He set out in the morning, just as the sun rose, blanketing the landscape in white snow. At first, the journey went smoothly. The three dogs enthusiastically pulled the sled, racing across the vast snowy fields. John relished the feeling of freedom, the crisp air, and the majestic scenery of the wilderness. But the excitement didn't last long. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, John decided to venture deeper into an unfamiliar area. He had no idea that he was entering a dangerous zone, one prone to avalanches. The sun gradually disappeared behind the snowy mountains, leaving a gray and somber sky. The icy wind cut through his skin like sharp needles, and each of John's breaths formed visible puffs of mist in the frigid air. The path grew more rugged as he delved further into the unexplored region. All the familiar landmarks he relied on for navigation had vanished, replaced by a desolate expanse of snow-covered terrain and endless mountain ranges. Max, Bella, and Rocky continued to pull the sled with vigor, but their heightened sensitivity to the unfamiliar environment made them more alert. Max's ears twitched occasionally, Bella's sharp gaze scanned the distance, and Rocky's resilient yet visibly tense moved more cautiously than usual. John felt a different kind of chill creeping into his chest, not from the cold, but from a growing sense of unease. He stopped, looking around, trying to identify any markers to orient himself. But there was nothing, just the unrelenting whiteness of snow, the howling wind, and the stillness of the mountains. "Damn it," John muttered under his breath. He realized he was lost. As he tried to find his way back, an unexpected sound broke the silence. Crack! It was the sharp, dry sound of snow splitting, reverberating across the mountainside. John froze for a moment, his breath caught in his throat. He looked up and saw what every mountaineer dreads: a massive snowdrift on the mountainside beginning to shift. The snow, with tons of weight, started sliding slowly, then gained speed rapidly, engulfing everything in its path. "Run," John shouted, his voice hoarse with panic. He ordered Max, Bella, and Rocky to pull the sled and flee in the opposite direction. But the avalanche moved faster than they could react. Max sprinted at full speed, Bella and Rocky following closely, the harness line stretched taut. But the uneven terrain and the sheer force of the oncoming snow caused the sled to lose balance. The sled overturned, throwing John into the snow. He tumbled several times before coming to a stop in a soft, powdery drift. His head hit the ground hard, leaving him dazed. The wind howled in his ears, mingling with the roaring of the avalanche behind him. For a few moments John lay motionless, the shock of the fall and the overwhelming fear paralyzing him. When he finally managed to sit up, he saw that the snow had already begun to engulf everything around him. The bitter cold wind carried fine particles of snow that clung to his face and hands. Max, Bella, and Rocky barked frantically. The three dogs circled around him, their fur bristling, eyes filled with fear but unwavering in their loyalty to their master. Max tugged at John's sleeve, trying to pull him up, while Bella and Rocky directed their attention toward the approaching avalanche, ready to confront it if necessary. John staggered to his feet, a crushing sense of helplessness washing over him. Every direction looked the same, a blinding expanse of white, with no markers to guide him. The avalanche continued its relentless descent, dragging along boulders and tree branches, creating a deafening roar like a monstrous beast. "There's no time," John whispered, his lips trembling not only from the cold but from the sheer terror of the moment. He looked at Max, Bella, and Rocky's loyal companions who had stood by him through countless challenges. Their eyes still glimmered with hope, but John knew their time was running out. A part of him wanted to run, but he had no idea where to go. He knelt down, wrapping his arms around the three dogs as if bidding them a final farewell. John closed his eyes, his mind flooded with memories of the farm, his flock, and peaceful mornings with his dogs. He resigned himself to the thought that this might be where everything ended. In the depths of despair, a sound echoed from afar, a long, deep, powerful howl. John opened his heart tightening. It was the howl of the alpha wolf, a sound he could never mistake. In the dim evening light, John spotted the silhouette of a large wolf standing on a snowy ridge nearby. Its silver-gray coat glistened against the white backdrop. The alpha wolf looked at him, then turned and began to run in another direction, occasionally glancing back as if to beckon him. John didn't hesitate. He commanded Max, Bella, and Rocky to follow the wolf. Though doubt lingered in his heart, he had no other choice. The wolf led the way skillfully, navigating through small slopes and steering clear of dangerous areas. John realized it was guiding him out of the avalanche zone. After nearly half an hour, John and his dogs finally reached a safe area. As they crossed the last ridge, a loud rumbling sound erupted behind them. A massive wall of snow crashed down, burying the path they had just traversed. Without the wolf, John and his dogs would surely have been trapped beneath it. Panting heavily, John turned to look at the alpha wolf. It stood not far away, its piercing eyes fixed on him, as if to ensure he was unharmed. Then, like a gust of wind, the wolf turned and disappeared into the forest, leaving John with an indescribable feeling. Back at the farm, safe and sound, John couldn't stop thinking about the wolf. It had not only saved his life but also taught him a profound lesson about the extraordinary bond between humans and nature. He no longer saw wolves as enemies but as an integral part of the world he needed to respect. Though he never saw the alpha wolf again, on quiet nights, John occasionally heard the familiar howl echoing from afar. That sound was no longer a warning but a gentle reminder that kindness and empathy could transcend the boundaries between humans and other living beings. From that day on, John's life was not just about tending the farm, but also about reflecting on his relationship with the natural world. He knew that even if he never saw the alpha wolf again, it was still out there, like an invisible friend always watching over him from afar. To John, that howl was not merely the cry of an animal but a symbol of gratitude and an everlasting friendship.